You fought in the light heavyweight division, you fought in the heavyweight division. You're always known as a masterful game planner, always having a smart, heady kind of take into the fight, not just brawling. How would you, as a light heavyweight or a heavyweight, game plan for today's champs like John Jones and JDS?
Well, I think the key to both John Jones and JDS is to make them wrestle. A la, Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva. I think that game plan, wading through that striking range where they're both so good and dominant, getting your hands on them, tying them up, frustrating them, putting them on the ground every chance you get, making it ugly, making it a junkyard brawl for all intents and purposes, but as much a wrestling match as possible is the way to beat both of those guys. I think you stand around and play with them in the striking realm, and it's going to be a bad night for you.
And in your book, Randy, Becoming the Natural, you put a lot of personal issues, a lot of stories about your past, a lot of stories, and you put them out on the table for everyone to see. It must have been a very difficult thing. How difficult was that, and did you feel kind of like a cathartic process, just saying like, hey, I might be one of the most popular guys in MMA, but I'm not perfect, but I'm willing to tell everyone and share it with everybody?
Well, I think that was the key for me. Was everybody has this tendency to kind of put you up on this pedestal and think that you don't make any mistakes, that you don't face the same challenges. And the autobiography was my opportunity to show people that, yeah, I managed to succeed and do the things that I've done, but I'm just like everybody else. I had challenges in my life. I had hurdles and things I had to overcome. I fell short on several occasions and made bad decisions like everybody else does. It doesn't mean you can't go out and achieve the goals and things that you set your mind to. So I hope that it came across that way, that it was motivational for people. They understand that I'm like everybody else, and so are all the other guys that do the things that they like to watch. We're humans, and we're all facing the same challenges. We're all fighters in our own way. We all fight temptation. We all fight all those things on a daily basis. So, the book was difficult at times to get down and to put that kind of stuff out. And there was parts of it that were fun and funny and lighthearted, and I had a blast doing it. So, I hope the message came across.
Well, I think it did, because I think a lot of people, like I said, can relate to the fact that, hey, Randy Couture, there's a lot of parts of him that are like me. I'm human. I go through troubles with family members. So I think you hit the point. You hit the nail on the head.
Thanks.
And how about your son Ryan? How proud are you of him becoming?
Ryan's doing a fantastic job. We're excited to see him back out there. Obviously everything's kind of in limbo with Strikeforce,
right,
and we're not sure what's going to happen there. And he may end up in the UFC. He may end up somewhere else. We're not sure at this point. But hopefully by the first of the year, we'll have an idea of where he's going to turn up and when he's going to get back in the cage.
And just a few more questions for you, Randy. Again, thank you for your time. You were part of the no holds barred era. You're part of the new era, one of the few who fought in both. And I know everyone always asks, who's the greatest mixed martial artist of all time? How about this? What was the tougher era of fighter? And just give me what you would think would be the prerequisites to be the best mixed martial artist.
It's a complicated question. I think athletes in both eras were very, very tough. Obviously, it was a different animal back then when a lot of times didn't know who you were fighting. You didn't get to study tape. You didn't get to see multiple fights and study and break a guy down. A lot of times you showed up and you stepped on the scale, and you didn't get to see that guy until you both stepped on the scale. So you were really kind of relying on what you did and not worrying too much or formulating a game plan based on what they might do. And, it was a completely different thing. Fighting multiple times in a night was a much different animal as well. You had a pretty good idea who you were going to fight in the first round of the tournament, but you never know who was going to advance to the second or the third round of the tournament. And that was always a challenge as well. I did that a couple times. It was tough. I think technically now fighters are a lot more prepared. They're conditioned better. They're more well-rounded. They rely less on their soul background and more on being a well-rounded, complete mixed martial artist, which makes it a much more competitive endeavor. And I think that shows in the level of competition that we have now. Not that the other guys weren't tough. I think they were tough, but it was just different.
And how about injuries plaguing the sport? You think it's just coincidence, or is it really training?
I think it's part of a contact sport. We train very, very hard to prepare for these fights. Accidents happen in training. There's a fine line between overtraining and undertraining. Getting it right, when you get it right, you know you did, and you have a good performance. And we all walk into every single fight with nagging injuries all the time. There's no way around it in a combative contact sport like this one.
And you're one of the most beloved guys in MMA, one of the pioneers of the sport. Your last fight with Machida, here it is, it's a loss. You had 55,000 fans are cheering and going crazy for you. And I know you have to be good at a sport to get fans like that, but you also need, to me, another element besides being good. So why is Randy Couture so endearing to all his fans?
I don't know. I think maybe the autobiography captures it, and I'm a regular guy like they are. I live next door in all intents and purposes, and try to keep it simple, be myself, and I think fans like that, they can appreciate that and relate to that. And so that puts you in a position, especially as an older athlete, almost from the start, where the fans want to root for you. They want to see you do well. You keep it simple. You put it, you don't talk a lot of trash. Go out, do your job, have fun. I don't know. I think that approach seems to be appreciated.
And also, you were in a time too. You're one of the few who didn't take any gruff. You walked away a couple of times in the UFC. Made no bones about it. You stuck up for what you believed in, what you thought you were worth. What kind of message can you send to guys coming up that might want to fight against something like you did?
Well, I mean, it's always a challenge. The guys that buck the system a little bit there are repercussions to that. It has to be done. We have to stand up for ourselves as athletes, and the promoters in a lot of ways hold a lot of the cards and have a lot of the power. So if you find yourself in that opportunity to flex your muscle a little and get a little back, I think you have to do what you have to do. But there's certainly a fine line there. You have to be careful and not do things that are in the long run are going to damage the sport, because ultimately we want to see the sport continue to flourish and not disenchant the fans and all those sorts of things. So there's a very fine line there you have to walk.
And you have said before your proudest moment was UFC 68, to come back and taking the belt from Tim Sylvia. Is there another moment that ranks up close to that as far as proudest moments?
I've had so many amazing moments in my career, from the very first Belfort fight to Chuck to Tito, and then of course Tim. Was probably one of my favorite nights. A huge crowd in Columbus was ridiculous. So even going out in front of 55,000 fans in Toronto was an amazing night. The standing ovation at the end of that night was remarkable and something I'll never forget.
I know one of my favorites, and it was a loss, but your fight was versus Big Knives, one of my favorite fights ever.
Yeah, that was a great fight, and in front of my hometown crowd in Portland, and knock down, drag out, hit him with everything but the kitchen sink.
And how deep was that choke? How deep was that choke to get out?
Still standing there looking at me. So I did my homework. I knew the things he was going to try to do, and fortunately reacted quickly enough to get out of those situations. But not a lot of guys would have. It was a tough fight.
And lastly, what was your biggest disappointment as a professional mixed martial artist? I know you had wanted to fight Fedor at one point, even Bas Rutten.
Things worked out the way they worked out. I wouldn't, I didn't really have any terrible disappointments in my career. I think I learned tons more in the losses that I sustained, and they forced me to be a better person and a better athlete. I think in the long run, things turned out exactly how they should have, and I don't have any regrets at all.
Outstanding, Randy. And it looks like from commentating, from doing this stuff, your seminars, we're not going to see you go away from the sport anytime soon. So I guess that's really good news for all us MMA fans.
I'll definitely be involved. I'll be around.
Thank you very much for a few minutes, Randy. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care.